How's it going?
Hello.
How's it going, Laura? Have you adjusted back to being back at line? If you can't tell, I have my cruise card here ready to go. I'm still living boat life hard.
If I had known, I would have brought mine. It's hanging in my bathroom right now. I missed the memo. Oh, but yeah, getting these land legs back is really, really tough. I never knew that I could get seasick on land, but it happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really weird. For those of you that are unaware, Laura and I were on a cruise with a bunch of our coworkers here at our organization last week, and yeah, we're back with a full-on live stream. I can't keep those glasses on the whole time. And look, this is what you get. This is the kind of visual gags that you get when you become a subscriber to the Brews Less Travel Beer Club. So shout out to all of our subscribers. Shout out to our new subscribers this month. Shout out to our long-term subscribers. Woo!
Oh yeah,
Good to be back.
definitely. In those high
Uh,
numbers. We're excited to have you guys. And yeah, I'm really excited to be finally talking with you guys on a live stream. Last week we did have our recorded episode, and I hope you guys all enjoyed that. I know I really enjoyed it talking with Chad. And this week we're back, we are live, and we are at it. It's going to be a really good show for you guys. Do you want to go
yeah,
over housekeeping, Brian, real
yeah,
quick?
and yeah, with us being back, couple things to remind you of. Remember to set your chat function to everyone. Throw those comments in the chat. Give us your thoughts on tonight's beers. Throw us any questions that you may have for tonight's guests. And I think that's all the housekeeping.
Yeah, sounds
Keep
about right.
Yeah,
And like I
a little
said,
rusty.
tonight's that's all right. We've been gone for a week. We were out at sea. But no, tonight is going to be fun. We have our featured brewery, Brickway Brewery and Distillery. We have two beers from this brewery. We have the Jalapeno Pineapple Pills and the Maple Pecan Brown Ale. And oh, I'm so excited to dive into these beers. And then later on, we will also be introducing our guest, Mitchell Elmblad, and he is the head brewer at Brickway. So we'll bring him in a little bit later on.
But without further ado, let's get into our first beer from Brickway. I think we should start with the jalapeno pineapple
I
pilsner.
think I'm ready for something spicy. Let's do it.
Let's do it. How's everyone doing at home tonight? It's great to see all of our wonderful subscribers here joining us on the live stream. Hope you didn't miss us too much.
I think Kit Kat said it was good, but not as fun as the live stream. I think everyone's thinking the same thing. We love to see you guys every week. And yeah, we are glad to be back. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers to everyone at home. This is Brickway's Jalapeno Pineapple Pills, a two-time medal winner at the GABF, the Great American Beer Festival. Took home a gold medal in 2019 for this beer, as well as a silver medal in the 2020 Great American Beer Festival. So, heavily awarded beer. Definitely getting the pineapple on the nose. There's a nice spice jalapeno note in the background on the nose.
Definitely. I haven't tried too many spicy beers like this, but I'm really, really liking this. I like the finish on it, that it kind of lingers a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not like too overwhelmingly spicy. You get that kind of burn as it goes down. Definitely not a beer you want to like shotgun or chug. That seems like a recipe for heartburn, but a wonderful sipping beer, wonderful, enjoyable beer. 4.8% ABV, so not too
Mhm.
strong. Mm,
Mm.
that is wonderful. So when I visited Brickway last month in Omaha, I tried the base beer to this, their regular Pilsner, and it was really nice drinkable beer. And it's amazing how much of that base Pilsner is still there with these big flavors of pineapple and jalapeno. You can still tell it's like a classic style Pilsner, easy drinking. There's that crispness on the back end that's really well accentuated
Mm.
by the spice, and this is just wonderful drinking beer.
I'm really enjoying it. And it's incredible that they use like 20 pounds of fresh sliced jalapenos, over 300 pounds of that pineapple puree. It's incredible what you can do when you really start to experiment with beer. And I'm really excited to talk to
Yeah.
our guest later on about this beer and that entire process too.
Yeah, and you touched on it earlier. You haven't had many spice beers. I've had a couple spice beers, but I do want to share a weird story, kind of in the hot beer realm. Not hot as in spice, but I did have a hot sour one time, like a beer that was
Ooh.
served hot, and it was so good. I wonder what it would be like to serve a spicy beer hot, if that would make it, that would obviously make it more spicy. Would it be too intense?
I think I would enjoy that. I think I have to try that out. We should see if anybody in the chat has done that. Has anyone in the chat warmed up their spicy beers? Throw it in the chat so we can find out. Get a few little stories from you guys.
Yeah. Um, I think it would depend on what you paired it with too. I still have my cruise card around my neck. I just saw it in the thing. Take this off. Again, visual gags that you get by tuning into the stream.
Definitely. So we said, Steven said he was a little skeptical about this beer at first, but better than expected, but would prefer the base, a little bit less spice. And so he's that traditional Pilsner type guy, it sounds like. And Roger is sharing in colonial New England, they jammed a red hot poker into the beer mug before serving to get it a little warm. That's fun.
That's crazy. And Kit Kat said, preferred habanero, but this one isn't bad. I haven't had many beers with habanero in it. I feel like it's typically when I find them, it's jalapeno. And I don't know if that's just because jalapeno is so heavily used in traditional cooking that it is just like a go-to flavor when someone's like, hey, let's grab a pepper, let's grab a chili to throw in this beer. But I'm loving it in this pineapple Pilsner. It's going really nicely. And so let's talk about another cool thing that you get as that our subscribers got as part of the club. They include this awesome brewery map. I'm stuck between blocking the microphone with the map and not being able to see it. Visual gags, loaded with visual gags in this episode. So you can see where Brickway is. You can't on mine actually because my green screen's backing out. But if you had one of those maps at home, you can see Brickway is centered around a couple other breweries, and then they're in this really cool neighborhood called the Old Market, and there's like cobblestone streets there, and it has this really old town vibe to it, and was a really nice neighborhood to start off my day because Brickway was actually the first brewery I visited when I went to Omaha. Had a beer in the tap room at 11:15 in the morning or something like that on a Sunday. It was a great way to start off the day, and the bartender there was very wonderful, showed me around, took me into the back, let me see the awesome brewery space that they have there, and yeah, it was just a great time. Just a really cool neighborhood, really cool spot that Brickway has.
Yeah, it's fun to explore the new places and find the new little joints. And that's obviously what we're doing here with Brews Less Traveled. We're finding all of those lesser known breweries. And I was so excited to hear your experience, and we're going to be hearing about it for the rest of the month. We've still got a couple weeks left to go.
Oh yeah.
But I think as we're talking about it, I think it might be about time that we bring on our guest. So please, everyone, help us in welcoming the head brewer at Brickway, Mitchell Elmblad. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Hey Mitchell,
Look
how's it
at
going?
that. Look at that setup behind you. You have quite the layout. Oh, you
Oh my
prepared
God.
me earlier this week for the cool background, but
This
explain
is my home
yourself.
bar. It took me about 3 months to remodel this, and so it's hard to leave. It's hard to leave home when your bar looks like this.
Yeah, for folks listening on the podcast, behind Mitchell is probably over 100 bottles. He has barrel staves lining the bottom of his bar. He's got some beautiful tin tackers up there. It looks like a great place to enjoy a beer,
I love it.
glass of
And
whiskey.
then
Yeah.
the gold medal for that jalapeno pineapple pills is on the wall right behind me, or right in front of me. So might have to show you here in a little bit.
They let you take that home? They didn't keep that at the brewery?
Well, I found out, so the owner bought me a duplicate, and I use air quotes because it's the exact same metal, except for on the back of the one that we got on stage, it just says what it is. So it's the exact same thing. So that really means a lot. It's pretty cool.
That is awesome. So let's start with this jalapeno pineapple pills. It seems like this is a beer that you could easily overdo, like especially with the peppers. How do you approach a recipe with these kind of specialty ingredients?
Absolutely. So it's kind of funny. So I'm a sucker for self torture when it comes to Untapped because I look at the ratings all the time on this one. And the funny thing is, this is one of our most decorated beers, and it's our lowest rated one on Untapped because a lot of people have a lot of, I don't know, they have issues with they think it's like clashing and everything. I'm like, no. You gotta really explore this from start to finish. So you've got this really delicate base Pilsner, light, crisp, clean, a little bit doughy, crackery. And then so now we're gonna add jalapenos, which I hand slice those all the time. I tell you what, it's hard to sit still for hours and just hand slice all those jalapenos. And so seeds and all, everything goes in that. And then it gets hundreds of pounds of pineapple puree. And so the pineapple is not supposed to be in the front seat on that. That pineapple is supposed to kind of play Switzerland. It's kind of like this neutral aspect of calming the heat and not overpowering that delicate base beer. And it's supposed to, that's a big thing that we really focus on is balance.
No, I think you did a really good job because yeah, exactly what you're saying. It's not, either one isn't too overpowering. It does really good to balance that out.
And the pineapple is supposed to be way in the back seat.
And it complements that burn of the pepper very well. Yeah.
I'm a sucker for chili beers. I love it.
That's awesome. Cool. So, Laura?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've only started sipping. This is a beer that I'm going to have to be sipping all night long, but I know we have a second beer here that we are going to be diving into. So this is the Maple Pecan Brown Ale. So if everybody at home, if you want to crack it open, and Mitchell, do you want to tell us a little bit about this beer?
Sure. When I was on mute though, I do have to admit, because, as a brewer, it's kind of like, I was like, oh, I'll do the maple first because it's kind of like, I don't want the peppers to wreck your palate. It's like brushing your teeth and then eating an orange or a piece of chocolate. So everybody who's on or listening or watching, just maybe take a sip of water or something first. So this maple pecan, so we do just a couple seasonals per year. And this is one of our most popular. So I've revamped this. I rebuilt this recipe from the ground up this year and use a lot of Munich malt. I want a lot of like biscuity doughiness in this, and it's a lot fuller body than we've ever had in years past. And so we use a lot of real maple. There's two different types of maple flavorings that we put in the boil. In the past, we used to put it into our bright tank right before we kegged it or canned it. So now I put it in the kettle, and so we actually boil that maple syrup for a while.
Like
and
a late boil edition?
Actually, pretty early
Really?
this time. It used to be pretty late, and it kind of tasted like chemically and fake, and it wasn't doing it for me. And so I tried it at the very beginning of the boil, and I really like the way it turns out. It's like you really get on the nose now. And the pecans themselves, those are we get those from a small farm in Oklahoma. So those are real crushed pecans that we get in these giant 30-pound boxes, and we put them straight into the mash. So that mash is amazing smells coming out of that brewery when we make that.
How is that mash tun cleaning out with all the nuts in there?
It's not bad. It's a perfect filter bed, those pecans. And then when our spit grain farmer comes, he tells me that the livestock, the cows and the pigs, love the maple pecan grain.
Wow. One of our viewers at home, Troy, asked which pecan farm he is in Oklahoma.
I will kind of casually look it up as we talk, and I will let you know.
As he looks that up, I just want to note, I love the smell of beer brewing. I love going into a brew house and smelling everything. And this beer, I can only imagine what the brewery smells like when this brew is in the process, because you get that maple syrup, the toffee, the pecans, like we were saying, and it all just rolls together. Oh, this is just perfection. I'm loving this one.
And it's great. And so obviously seasonals, you want to be seasonally correct. So we released this in September, and I want to say it's right as fall hits in Omaha, but in the Midwest, it'll be 100 and the next day it'll snow. And so it's kind of hit or miss on the maple. So we do this from like September till right about now.
Yeah, and it's a great beer. I am in Pittsburgh, and it snowed today, and this is exactly the type of beer that I want to drink when there's snow on the ground outside. But you touched on the heavy addition of Munich malt in this. So let's get into malt, because it's definitely not talked about like hops or yeast or even like water profiles to some degree. But as we know, it is an integral ingredient to both brewing and the distilling process, being that Brickway, distills spirits as well. Can you elaborate on your focus of malt and beers like this and what it means to beer?
Sure, absolutely. So I haven't been brewing that long. I've only been a professional brewer for about 8 years, but I really take to heart the purity of the recipes and ingredients, and I try to stay very, very true to style when it comes to recipe building. And I truly, truly love building malt bills. Like you just said, I think that's probably my favorite part of that, even before the hops. And so on this maple pecan, I'm like, what's going to really complement these maple and pecan flavors? And I really wanted to kind of highlight and showcase the Munich, because I just, that biscuitiness and that bready and a little bit of like toffee and caramel, and it'll just kind of like really boost all the rest of those flavors.
And the beauty of malt, it's been there, like that was the main flavor component of most beer throughout history. And it's just great to be able to go back to that and be like, well, I know I can, if I need biscuity, I can pull it from Munich malt, or if I need this kind of bready tone, I can get it from this base malt, or I can get it from this specialty malt. And then you get into your roasted malts, and there's just so much to play with at malt that I don't think it's appreciated or talked about as much as, certainly not as much as hops, but you could even say that people nerd out about yeast and water profiles more than malt.
If you really want to nerd out, I can throughout. I know you're not gonna believe me, but I can smell it. So like when I make new recipes, and I'm really unsure where this is going to go on my first batch, I can smell it in the mash tun. Like through that first 6 or 8 hours of the day, I can smell. I'm like, oh, I'm going to need to make some adjustments here. It's too much, too little. And then like as I'm graining out, and I'll taste some of that grain, I'm like, okay, I can make some adjustments. But like, yeah, that's my favorite part, is making malt adjustments. And I found it. So I get the pecans from Afton, Oklahoma, from Miller Pecan Company.
Miller Pecan Company.
And they're just the sweetest. I called them in the fall. I'm like, yeah, just re-upping my pecan order. And they're like, oh, sweetheart, thanks for calling. We'll get you set up right away. Thank you so much. How's your day going? I'm like, yeah, that's Oklahoma.
I love it. And then you basically know their whole family history
within
a couple minutes.
Yeah. And it was like I remember she was asking me like some type of personal question. I'm like, do we know each other? Like, how's it going today? I'm like, I'm good, thanks.
Bring up a topic from the last time you talked to them last year. Yeah. So you mentioned being able to smell the different things while in the brewing process. Is that something that was always a trait of yours, or was something that you kind of grew over time in the 8 years that you've been brewing?
So kind of backtracking just a little bit, is that I was on the way outside of the brewing community and the industry, and I wanted to get in. And I was trying to figure out, how do I get in? And so I interviewed to be a taproom manager, and I wanted to kind of run the front of the house for breweries in bigger cities when I was trying to move to Nebraska. And I'd always make it down to these final couple of interviews. And there was this big brewery, and I made it down to the final 2 people. And I got the phone call saying, you know what, we loved you, but this other person is a certified Cicerone. And I remember my whole drive back home going, what the hell is a certified Cicerone? And so I'm like, well, whatever that is, I need to be that if I want to get into the industry. And so obviously digging into that program, that certification, I mean, you want to talk about sensory, like that is the name of the game. And I spent years, that's all I did. I read every book. I bought every single beer. Like I literally, I'm not exaggerating. I would give my wife a couple $100s and go, okay, you go buy these 40 different styles of beer. You come back, you pour them all out for me, and I'll drink them blind. And I would just call the malts, call the beers, call the styles. And we do all this sensory on hops, malts, everything, anything I get my hands on. I wanted to look at everything. I wanted to taste everything. I wanted to smell everything. And that has played a huge role in where I'm at today. And it's even like the sounds the sounds and the smells and the temperatures and everything. And it's just, I love what they do.
It's a 5 sensory experience.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that's like such a good exemplification of quality control and quality analysis starts from the moment you start making that beer. To be able to smell like, oh, from the mash, this is going to need a little help in this direction. Oh, that might dry out a little bit too much, and to just have that focus on the process from step one, moment one of brewing that beer is just so awesome, and it definitely shows in the beers that we're drinking tonight too. Because
here's a good pro tip for everybody out there who want to get into that, to the Cicerone or whatever the sensory. I would go seek out grocery stores or liquor stores and ask for their out of date, bad, exploded. I'd ask for the worst stuff that they have, and they'd always. I could see all their faces now, and I'd take it home, and I love tasting beers with off flavors and that were bad and expired, because that helped me take that to the next level. And oh yeah, I was that guy. I'm still that guy, I guess.
That's a very unique take on learning the smells. And it makes sense though, because you need to know what you shouldn't be smelling when you're drinking a beer. Very cool. So shifting gears just a little bit, the beer and spirits world seems to be crossing paths even more nowadays than before. And we would love to know, are you working on any interesting collaborations internally?
Yeah, actually we are. Is it next week or the week after? Just in the brewing industry, you cross paths with everybody, and after you have a couple beers or 10 with some people, you strike up a good conversation. And so I've made some good friends with Remedy Brewing in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which they're an up and coming brewery. They're doing really well. And so he's coming down, and we want to make at least a triple IPA, maybe a quadruple. We're going to get silly with just a bunch of malt. And I've got some super high gravity yeast, and we're going to see how high we can get this. And I say that because we're kind of known for, on the beer side for Brickway, we're known for basically two things. Our flagship beer is our coffee vanilla stout. That's the one that pays the bills. I wish y'all could try that one. Some of you probably have. And our other one is our 17% imperial stout called Epic Blackout Stout. And we get a cult following for that every year. In fact, we're doing a big release for that this weekend, segue. But I'm like, all right, so I know how to get a stout to at least 17%. I think I could get an IPA to that much. So we're going to try that out next week.
Wow, that is exciting. Oh, and we're going to talk more about that, the Blackout Stout, in a minute. But so is that kind of nerve-wracking trying to collaborate with someone and do such a big project? Or is it like really exciting and fun? Like, how do you feel working with them?
That's kind of a joke around the brewery, is that I can do things blindfolded now by myself. We're all like well-oiled machines, but once you bring somebody in the mix and you're hanging out and talking, you completely forget how to brew. It's impossible. In fact, the owner, Zach Treamer, he's a master brewer, master distiller. He has his degrees, decades of experience, and both he and I were brewing one day. And we had a couple whiskeys and a couple beers, and we thought we're having a good time. And then at the end of the brew, we're transferring, we're knocking out our beer to the fermenter, and we look up at the brew deck and we're like, what is that giant bucket of hops for? We're like, oh, we kind of forgot to put that in the thing. But collaborations are fun. They're a lot of fun, and it's just kind of like you spend a lot of time by yourself back there. It's really quiet. It's just you and a lot of stainless steel. And it's fun to bring minds together with a lot of good ideas and see what you can make. And so it's always fun. Any collaboration for anybody, any place, when you try that out, it's it can only get better because you're bringing a lot of great ideas to the table, and they're fun. They're a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So let's get into more of the Epic Blackout Stout. As you mentioned, the event this weekend on the 12th, you're releasing, I believe it's 15 different variants of the Epic Blackout Stout.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. That is.
So can you tell us why
life.
You did that?
I don't know. It's like go big or go home. Like if I'm going to do this, just do this. So our Epic Blackout Stout, typically a beer like an ale takes 2 weeks or something from like grain to glass, and then maybe a lager takes a little bit longer. So this sits in our cellar for about 8 to 9 weeks. it takes a long time to finish, and it takes a lot of rounds of more sugars, more yeast, and it takes a long time to get up to 17%. And then so when we do release it, man, it is so good. And you think 17% stouts or 17% beer, your thing is going to be like super like fusily hot. It's just going to blow you over with alcohol, and it's really not. It's kind of dangerous. And so it's kind of like the can like comes with a warning. It's like, you're not going to think this is 17%. So we have a lot of I've been saving up. I love the cellar, as you can tell if you're watching. If you can't see, I have hundreds of bottles behind me. But so I'm like, okay, so every time we do a release, I'm going to save a keg or two, and so I'm going to have a 5-year vertical of all these different epic blackout stouts, and then I have a bunch of different weird, silly variants. So I have like a red hot tamale variant. I have almond joy.
I have them here in front of me.
Oh,
it
you
says,
do? Okay, yeah,
yes,
go for it. Yeah, you know them.
Vanilla Tootsie Roll, Mexican chocolate, red hot, almond joy, Sour Patch. You also have a 2022 barrel-aged raspberry vanilla epic blackout stout, a 2022, I'm not going to pronounce that first word, sherry cask aged epic blackout stout, and then 4-year vertical of of barrel aged and a 4-year vertical of regular stout. That's a lot of different stouts. So I think when a lot of people, high alcohol beers have become so commonplace, when it was worldwide stout and 120 minute were the only big beers out there, people were kind of amazed by them, and they seem kind of commonplace nowadays. I don't know if a lot of people know this at home, but yeast starts to die after like 10, 11, 12% alcohol. It's in this extremely stressful environment, and Mitch already touched on it, but you have to incrementally feed it sugar to keep it going and keep it going. And typically, I don't want you to spoil any of the secrets of your process, but you typically use some type of very specialized yeast to be able to tolerate that higher alcohol content, and to be able to produce a beer that's drinkable is just really, really admirable.
Yeah, it's really not even a secret. It's kind of like how Sierra Nevada will list their pale ale recipe on the website, because they're like, you know what, good luck, we are who we are. So Same with us. So I use not only a bunch of high grab yeast that can eat and chew up to mid-teens, but then also I use some whiskey yeast to be able to handle that. So that's not really proprietary, because the thing is, it's the process. You got to know when, how, why. And whenever you're adding more sugars and more yeast, you got to think about like this clean, sanitary environment, because we as brewers are 90% of the time we're janitors. And so we're cleaning, making sure everything's perfectly clean. And now that I have this in the fermenter, stay away, because it's clean and sanitized and perfect. Oh, wait, by the way, now we're going to open it back up and put more stuff into it, which is super stressful. And I do that 2 or 3 times. So you're potentially you're adding all these different variables that can potentially contaminate it. And so that's the tough part, is making sure you're keeping that clean environment.
Which variant are you most excited about?
Ooh, I think we might get this a little later, but I'm pretty traditional. I really like, if I can taste like some solid traditional flavors from a solid barrel aged one, I'm super satisfied and happy with a barrel aged stout. It's fun to make all the silly ones with 12 different ingredients, and it's like whatever I can grab out of the pantry. That's cool. It's fun, but that's not really my jam.
All right. So what is your audience's favorite variant? What do the customers buy the most often?
They were so I'm pretty resourceful, especially as the increase of prices of everything's going up, but I've kind of done this every year. So we make a raspberry hef. So I also do a raspberry epic, which is amazing. It really is a raspberry 17% raspberry stout. And so I have a barrel aged raspberry vanilla stout that it kicks in the first day or two. It goes very fast. It's pretty good.
That sounds really good. I think that would be one that I would go for. And we did have a few questions in the chat.
Sure.
So Stephen asks, what is the reason to make such a high alcohol stout, besides the fact that it's fun?
It's I think for the advertisement is more of it used to be the highest gravity beer produced in Nebraska. So it's kind of a thing. So if you can claim to be the highest alcohol beer in the state, it's kind of a thing.
Okay, so the
but
recognition,
also, yeah, it's kind of, and it's fun because it's hard to do. Like if you can get there, everybody else in this industry is like, oh wow, hey, high five, props,
Yeah.
knuckles. But also for when we do these releases, it's great because it can age for a really long time. And so I think the oldest one we're tapping is a 2018, but I have a couple cans from before that, and it tastes just as fresh, as it did when I made it. And the best part is about those really big alcohol stouts. Those oxidized aged flavors are very welcoming and inviting as they age. It's not like drinking the Pilsner with any of those oxidation notes. Ugh, it's not fresh, drain pour. But a 5-year-old stout, when you get notes of like leather and sherry and tobacco and all like that, those are like really nice, and they kind of blend together and they mesh. And like, ooh, this aged very nicely. And it also kind of gives a nod and the tip of the cap to the brewer. It's like, you know what, you stored this properly, because it's one thing over time, but temperature and then how you take care of that as well.
Well, yeah, every beer you have to, as a brewer, at a certain point, you're like, okay, hands off. The yeast is going to do its work from here on out. And now you're going to take a beer that's finished fermentation. You don't have that aid of the yeast to be able to buffer mistakes or anything like that. And you're going to set it in a barrel and you're going to let it sit in an uncontrolled environment for a long period of time, and anything could happen. So
that's a good point. So I guess, that to another level of why I like the barrel age, because those barrels are going to flex and they're going to contract and expand, and they're just sitting out there, and you can't fully control the temperature 100% of the time. And so it could, and you're trusting that you've taken care of the barrel beforehand, because there's some bugs that can get into those barrels. It doesn't matter if they're 17% or not; they could still come out. And so I take a lot of pride in my my barrel program.
Good. I mean, as you should. It's a hard thing to do. There's no doubt. So we have one final question for you, Mitchell, and
sure.
This is something that we've been asking to a lot of our guests. But what is something that you wished Omaha was more well known for?
That's a really great question. Because I've been in Omaha for 8 years now, and I have really seen the progression of Omaha and Lincoln and this area of the country really come up on the beer scene. And I'm really proud of what we've been doing the past couple of years. And I would really like for not only the Midwest, but our part, Omaha, Lincoln, even Kansas City, like our region, to be known for how well we balance our beers. Very well balanced when it comes to IPAs and just classic styles. There's a lot of good breweries around here that do classic styles, and it's not a knock on other ones at all, like 100%. It's just my preference. If you can really execute a classic style, that says a lot more to me, and you get a lot more respect, because go off and do your pantry beers, but we as a Nebraska community, or this Midwest, like we're really well balanced, and we kind of execute some of those classic styles.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what about outside of the brewery world in Omaha? Anything that you love to do around your city?
That seems like I'm such a nerd, but I think that was me. Like before I got into the industry, that was me. I would like brewery hop, and my wife and I, like, I'll tell you, I'm an untapped nerd. Like it's a great way to make a date or a day or a weekend of it. What we do is we badge hunt. So like they have venues. So if you're like, all right, find 5 dive bars. We're like, okay, so on Saturday, we're going to find just the really shadiest 5 dive bars in the city. We're going to go in there, slam a beer, check in, and go to the next one. And after 5, you get that badge. We're like, okay, that was cool. We'll never go back to those places, but
sense of accomplishment.
We'll do 5 golf courses in the weekend or whatever. And that's kind of how we plan our dates or our times. That's what we kind of do.
Sounds like a good time. And
it's fun.
We did have a question just hop up in the chat. What is your favorite Omaha dive bar?
Oof. It's kind of more proximity, but it's one that's called Caddyshack. What you think it is? I like where you walk in. Well, first of all, after you walk in, everybody turns around and the record scratches. But then you can sit down. Like my go-to, oh man, is a good old High Life. I love them High Life. If I go to the dive bar and get a High Life, A+. You win.
I love that. All right. So Mitchell, do you have anything that you would like to plug before we hop out of here?
Oh yeah. Well, it feels like I plugged if you're in the Omaha area or whatever, like if you're not, you need to get here because a lot of these variants of Epic it's on my last keg. It's never going to exist again. And I'm tired of spending 3 weeks making 15 variants. But also, Brickway Brewery Distillery. So about half my time I am distilling, which is in your background there. There's our nice shiny copper still. And we make a lot of award-winning whiskeys. And I might be a tad biased, but I think I've tried enough whiskeys that I think if you come in, you're going to get a lot more than just 20 beers on tap. We make everything, gins and vodkas and whiskeys and all that stuff. And I've had the opportunity to really learn that process as well. And it does play a role on the brewing side because I think the distilling, now that I've done that for several years, is a little more bulletproof. Like you could drop a hose or you don't need to sanitize something. You just kind of distill stuff because it's super high alcohol. But when you come in on the brewing side and then that's your background and that's your knowledge and you bring that delicacy and the intricacy over to the distilling side, those details follow. And I think our crew are brewers, like beer brewers, and it makes it different on the distilling side. And so I think we have good products from start to finish and front to back and side to side.
Awesome. And where can people find your products, beers and spirits alike?
We have a couple states. I know the beer game a couple years ago for everybody was to conquer all 50 states. And then now it really is. Everybody is like, hey, support local, really bring it back to home. And so we have Missouri, Iowa, South Dakota, Kansas, and of course Nebraska. Every major grocery store and every liquor store in those states. And if not, and I'm sure everybody's heard this before, if you just go to your favorite liquor store or grocery store, if you just say, hey, we'd like to have this, they will tell their distributor and we'll get our stuff there. I've been reading these comments. Haven't been saying much, but I just saw something about Ohio. And so this is not related. I would love to be in Ohio because then I could probably go do events there because I grew up as a Cleveland Indians fan, huge baseball fan.
Oh.
But yeah, I would love to be in Ohio. That's how you can do it. Just go, if you bug your liquor store manager, and then they could find a way to get our stuff in there.
Yes. Bug your local distributor, bug your local liquor retailer, and go to Ohio. Shout out to Ohio. Ohio's pretty cool. I live in Pittsburgh, so we're like supposed to hate Cleveland, but I love Cleveland. Cleveland's great city. I'm not being facetious at all. Like I really like Cleveland. It's a great
ever since I was a little kid. Big baseball. Actually, you can see it. So I think Pat, like if you could see, I have all those baseballs I caught at games in Cleveland. Those are all from Cleveland.
Oh, very cool. That's exciting. Oh, I just can't get enough of this background behind you with this bar. All of our viewers are lucky to be able to see you in your space here. This is amazing.
Well, I want to show you. I can show you I know that hopefully I won't be over on time here. So.
Oh no.
So there's the medal.
Oh, very cool.
That's awesome.
That's the jalapeno pineapple pills. And then I'm proud of this. So hopefully you get to watch this. But it's a fireplace. So these are actual Brickway bourbon staves.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Behind the fireplace.
Oh, see, all of our live stream viewers, you get a little treat when you tune into the live streams, get to see the home bar. Oh, this is amazing. I'm jealous.
Oh, you got some consecration there. You got some good Russian River bottles there.
So
there you go. All right. Well,
all right. That was all. This is fun.
Yeah.
We're just getting started, right? What else we have? What else we drinking?
I know. I'm like, I have drank this so quickly because the jalapeno, that one is a sipper for me, but this one, the maple, this is one where I can drink it almost too quickly. I'm right there at the bottom.
We appreciate that in the industry. So.
Oh yeah, it means we buy more beer, right? If we
drink swiftly and drink often.
Yeah. Well, Mitchell, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to Laura for co-hosting today and for the rest of this month. Cheers, everybody at home. We'll be back next week as we drink some more beers from our friends at Thunderhead Brewing Company.
Oh, I know those guys.
Yeah. Good folks there at Thunderhead. And we'll be joined by another great guest. So don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Untappd. Follow Brickway on Instagram, Facebook. Go to their website and drink more awesome beers.
Right. And travel there this weekend for that event as well.
Yes, everyone.
If you're
Buy a
watching
ticket
live.
to Omaha right now.
Yeah, come by. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.